Hello and welcome to Database Design Chat number 17. Today I'm going to talk about my gap year and visualizing your design. And the visualizing your design is a topic I came up with about a year ago. And I said, I'm going to go off this weekend. I'm going to go to the theme park. I'm going to make this video. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to keep making these videos. As I did that, I tried at a theme park. I was really close. And I tried to make the video at the park, and there's just too much noise. And then I tried again. And then my editor said, "Hey, Lewis, you think you should finish the book you've been writing for a year and a half?" And it was true. And I had broken my foot sometime in the middle of last year. Yeah, so about March was when I kind of stopped making these. I think March, June. I had a couple, in the middle of the year, not too many. And I broke my foot. And I know I don't type with my foot, but it took it out of me. I started a new job. I now work for Redgate at I'm the Simple Talk website editor, so I've got a little bit of that. That's actually kind of freeing up my time to do more videos and more question answering in forums kind of work. But so I just got back into writing about graphs, and I had to learn things and I had to do edits and I had to finish that. So just a few days ago, I turned in all my chapters and I just have a few more things to do, just little stuff left. Edit the PDFs, make sure everything looks good. I mean, it's hard work, but it's a couple of days worth of work. So I'm like, I'm gonna get back to normal. And one of the things I have like a bunch of ideas for these chats planned. One of the things I want to do is get back into this. I haven't presented at a conference since 2020. I think I did at SQL Saturday Nashville. I really only have one presentation left that I do, and I'm going to change that as well. But where it starts is right here. So today I want to get past my gap year and have my chat. So what we're going to do is I'm going to admit who I am, and I am Lewis Davidson. You can find out anything you want to know about me at my link tree at DRSQL. In fact, if you search for DRSQL, you'll find a lot about me. Okay. I am just your average person who comes up with way too many things to do. And sometimes, like this year, it's just got in the way. Life's just right. And so here it is, March of 2023. And I'm back. I'm going to make more videos. I'm going to try to make one or between 2 and 10, 2 and 20 of these a month. Probably two or three in a month. That, and I'm going to work on answering questions in forums and writing blog posts. Of course, I'm now the editor of the Simple Talk website for Redgate, which has been a tremendously different career than I had. I used to be a data architect. I used to write code. Now I edit articles. And one of the neat things is we're doing more Postgres, and I'm definitely doing more .NET kind of editing, which is fun. I'm learning a lot of stuff. But I want to make sure I keep my data platform roots because I really like them. So I've had this time. I've had to take a little extra time. I broke my foot in the middle of the year. That didn't help. There's recovery there, PT. And honestly, it's not so much. Anybody who has these problems knows it's not so much that I can't work. I can't type with a broken foot. It's more that you just get a little tired, little little not wanting to workness, and that's hard. So I'm not sure how many of these I can get done early in the year. but I'm having some shoulder surgery at the beginning of the end of March, March 31st. Not an April Fool's joke, but I do have a good April Fool's joke planned. I'm just gonna say several of them actually, but I'm gonna just say this: I am I'm ready to get back to working on this, and as soon as I'm back to typing and writing, I'll be presenting. Hopefully at conferences, definitely here at the in the um in the chat. I'm presenting now. I'm going to be at SQL Bits. That's a first for me. I'm really excited about that. Okay, so let's move on into the topic of the day, and that is visualization. Now, visualization is a part of design in as much as you can't know everything, right? So when you're thinking about designing something, you have to understand it. Now, some people always go, "I need, you need to be an expert in the field you're working on," and I disagree with that. I think you have to know some understanding of what you're designing. You have to understand they're working, but really, it's the customer that has to know the business, and they're going to explain it to you. They're gonna give you the ins and outs, and you're going to design to meet that criteria. But you're going to start visualizing it. How does it work? What is what is the thing that you're trying to make happen? And it's really interesting. I've done some things like one of the my big side projects. It wasn't working for the nonprofit. Was we were for a chemical company. I have no idea how they did their work. I just know the data that they stored, and I had some idea of what it was. And it wasn't until after that I started thinking about, you know, how do I know what it is I'm trying to build? And so I've kind of grew from there this thought about how do I design? How do I know what it is I'm trying to build? So one of the things I do is I visualize a problem. If I'm trying to solve a donation problem, I'm thinking about what the person's doing. How are they entering the data, and how is that stuff kind of working, and what kinds of bits of data I might need to store, and et cetera. And so I'm asking the customer, hey, did you want to do this? Did you want to do that? Because it's what I've thought about. I mean, I always defer to what the customer wants. Customers don't think always as deeply as they need to about what the problems they're trying to solve. So I think about their problems, think about how it works. I think part of that started too because I was at a car dealership once, and I'm sitting there watching this person just go bananas on the keyboard. So I'm like, okay, I need to have my oil servo changed and tires rotated. Fine. And like 5 minutes later, this person's done typing. And okay, fine. They're having to type out all the things I want. You come back to pay, you think you're going to hand you a slip, you're going to be done. And like, hold on. And in my head, I'm thinking, what are they doing? Is this the natural process that it takes to do a oil change and tire rotation? What are they transcribing? I still have no idea. It's still a mystery to me what's going on when these people are doing these things. But when I'm thinking about what how I would have it work, I'd have check boxes, and certainly at the checkout, they'd be just like, done. I mean, I know there's certain things that have to be written down. Customer states there's a rattle in the front, blah, 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 right? That's fine. That's going to take some time. That doesn't bother me until you have to type. Typing when I'm checking out, and I already know how much they're going to charge me, confuses me. So the problem with this is no matter who you are, you're probably never going to have enough opportunity to design enough systems to actually do this. So how do you find enough work? How do you, unless you're working for a big consulting company and they're sending you a new organization every month or two, and you're designing their systems, you're not going to have this like breadth of knowledge. And so I came up with a thing I've done. It's kind of a thing to pass the time, admittedly, but I call them mental exercises because, I'm never going to have that time. And I'm a big Disney fan. I'm a big Hollywood fan. I'm a big imagination fan. And that's I read an Imagineer book a while back about, how they artsy kind of stuff. So I thought about that myself. When I was standing in some queues, I'm thinking, what can I do? What could I possibly come up with? So I often, when I'm have time to pass, I often design data structures in my head, and sometimes I write them down, and sometimes I try to program them. And I know, I'm going to just be completely honest, it's a lot harder than it sounds to build a database for even a semi-complex problem. But it's something that you need to think about. So that's when I said I'm going to do a presentation, and I'm going to go out, and I'm going to sit in the theme park, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this presentation in the theme park. And I didn't. I just said, this is too hard. Too much noise, too many people yelling and screaming and having fun, silly people. But sometimes it's me doing the very same thing I'm going to use as my example. But I've done this. I haven't really built a database to capture this data, but I'm a person who likes to marathon roller coasters or attractions. I would love to sit down on a roller coaster and ride it all day without even getting up. That's not possible. So, because of that, I start thinking about the math. How long is it going to take me to do things? I've ridden this coaster hundreds of times, and one day I actually sat down and rode it 52 times. This is not in a row. This is having to get up and get back on and wait for the coaster to come up. So I've waited in this line for many, many, many hours. And I've actually ridden other roller coaster, Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom 58 times in a day. And I've done that a couple of times. And so I've ridden the same coasters just hundreds of times each. So part of that process is just watching things, watching what people are doing, where they're pushing the buttons. There's all sorts of hand signals. Every one of the riders has to go clear or push a button or and it's really cool stuff. And every bit of that is data. As I'm sitting there watching this, I'm thinking, what kind of data could I do here? What entities do I see? And conceptual models, that's really where you're going to have your most interesting mental exercises. You can get to that without paper, really. And you've got coasters, and you've got different train cars, and each one of those train cars has a life cycle. How many times has it gone through this cycle? How many people have been on it? Where have these people been? Where do they go next? How fast does it take to do a complete cycle? How many people can I get in this ride in a day, in a year, in a month? All those sensors. One of the things that people have probably noticed in past years is roller coasters and attractions break down a lot. Why do they break down? Does it stop running? Does gravity stop working? It's this machine in front of us. It's the Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood, and it's 100% gravity. There's no place in here that's not gravity except that lift hill. So from right here where you're at, all the way down to the bottom of that hill, where it's going to come out in a minute. Right now, there's 2 trains running instead of 1 train, and there's some differences in how the train feels when that's the case. Um, all of that has implications, has interesting bits of data to be captured and be used if you did the right thing. So there's sensors that will tell you if it's shaking too much. I don't exactly know what the sensors are, but I'm assuming, too fast, too slow, um, it's not working right. Sometimes these things break down. I mean, most of these, it's a lot less likely that a completely gravity-based ride breaks down than a launched coaster or any of the other kinds of things. I'm going to get off the coaster topic more or less, but the idea is what kind of data can you do with this? And then just sit back and maybe come back to your desk with a piece of paper and draw out the model and think about what you could do with that model. And this, you can do this in stores, you can do this in shops. Anytime I'm waiting, I'm usually thinking about something. I'm either writing something or I'm thinking about, man, if I could just help these people out. And I do want to be clear about that, right? We all have this like thought that if we were in charge, we could do something better than the next person. But I know that's not true because there's all sorts of realities that go into creating software and maintaining it and the kinds of things that you think of, like right here, do they have, is it worth the money? I mean, how much would it cost to, capture all that data and use all that data? Would you make the money off of it? There's so much more to the thoughts than just what could you do if you had the data. But there's so much data out there in the world. And the capabilities of capturing it are so much greater now. So, all right. So let's just be completely nerdy here. The more you can practice data modeling, the better. The more you can practice designing, the better. The more you can practice anything, the better. How could you make the world better with data? I mean, this is how I'm pretty sure. Don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure that people out there who are tremendous entrepreneurs, tremendous risk takers, thought, how can I make the world better with data? And there's so many places, right? But I always want to come back to this. I always want this to wrap up. Correctness is always important. Make sure the things you're visualizing, you're thinking about how would you do it right, and how might I solve the entire problem. And when you come to that, the big thing is, how do you define what that solution is? Am I trying to make the track better? Am I trying to make the experience for the person better? Am I trying to make safety better? Am I trying to build an entire theme park? And just work that thought in your head, and how could you do something with it? Sit down with a copy of SQL Server or Postgres or whatever SQL engine you're using, and just try it. How could you simulate the problem you're trying to solve? Some things are going to be a lot more complex than others, and realize that some of the solutions you're going to try are going to be so hard. You're like, this isn't worth it in my free time, and that is completely acceptable in real normal thinking, because you're just one person and you're doing this for free. All right, until next time. I tend to like to imagine the world is just one big source of data. And, it really is. It's more data than anybody can process so far. We're getting there, we're getting better. You are working with some sort of database management system. Maybe it's relational, maybe it's not. But think about how the most efficient way you would store all of that data as well. I know there's a tendency now to just store a lot of data and then just brute force process it. And that's really interesting concept, in that, yes, if you can't pre-imagine what you want to do with data, capture all the things that seem important, and then go back and format them later. But if you know what it is you want the data to look like, you know what it is you're trying to achieve, it's 100% better to like go back and design that data to do what it is you specifically want. I'm not even saying the relational engine has to be that engine, but the concepts we use in the relational engine aren't super hard, aren't super complicated. They're actually pretty straightforward. Every table has a single meaning, and all of them relate together, and we can sum them and average them and all that stuff. And the structure that you have has some value if you can, in fact, structure things. So, when you're out there, just think about the world as a big old source of data, and don't do that while you're driving, but other times, not too hard when you're driving. I have occasionally just wondered how I got in places because I get thinking about a topic like this. But all right, so that's my hello. How you doing? Where have I been? I've been at theme parks. I have been to a few theme parks, but I've been working on my graph book, and now I'm back to talking relational database design. Then I'll get to graph design a little later in this series. I got some ideas on, creating tables, designing tables, all that kind of stuff. Constraints coming up. So until next time, see you later.